What you gonna do, brother, when Jeff Townsend Media runs wild on you?
Have you been searching for a podcast? Do you want to learn from some great content creators? Well, you've come to the right place. Indie Podcaster with your host, Jeff Townsend, the Indie Podcast Father.
All right. This is Jeff Townsend. Thank you for checking out another episode of Indie Podcaster. This podcast is made for podcasters and other content creators. Certainly don't consider myself a guru, nor either do any of my friends that will be featured in these episodes. But what we do like to do is talk content creation, pick each other's brains, and have a good time. I'm proud to mention that this podcast is sponsored by Indie Drop-In. Now, let me tell you something about Indie Drop-In. This is an awesome network that my friend Greg has created. What he does is drop episodes from independent content creators into his established podcast audience on his feed, and he shares your episodes to an audience that already exists. Yes, it's like free advertisement and promotion for your podcast. He spent a lot of time, money, and effort building it, and he already has an audience interested in the content, and he can certainly help you by sharing your content. It's great promotion. Go to indiedropin.com/creators and check it out. If you're a comedy, true crime, paranormal, or various other different kinds of podcasts, you can benefit from this. So I really encourage you, once again, go to indiedropin.com/creators and see if you can get your stuff featured on Indie Drop-In. We'll go back to the podcast here, Indie Podcaster. So what we've currently been doing is sharing content from 3 different projects that I'm involved in. The first is Good Morning Podcasters with my good friend Fuzz Martin. We also do some content on Podcasting Sucks. And then in these episodes, you will also hear some content from Podcasting Power Hour. Podcasting Power Hour is a live thing we do on Twitter Spaces. We get a whole bunch of great podcast minds together and we talk podcasting. So if you're a content creator, a podcaster, I think you'll take something away from every episode of the content I'm going to share with you. With that being said, make sure you check out Indie Drop-In and make sure you enjoy this episode. I think it's important that we all continue to learn and grow every day, and that will help us become even better content creators. That's certainly what I try to do, learn something new every day. I'm excited to share this content with you. I think it'll be a learning experience for you. Let's get to this episode, and I hope you have a great time listening to it.
Welcome to Podcasting Power Hour with your host, Jeff Townsend, a.k.a. the Indie Podcast Father. I'm your co-host, Greg, from Indie Drop-In Network. Podcasting Power Hour is recorded live every Monday at 9 p.m. Eastern Time on Twitter Spaces. Every week, an experienced panel of podcasters and other experts will tackle your podcasting questions. We will, of course, put links to all of our guests and any relevant information in the show notes. All right, let's get this party started.
Fair enough. All right, we'll get it going. We don't have necessarily like a set topic or like a guest we're bringing in tonight. So definitely needing you guys to request the mic, come up and talk some podcasting. Of course, I am Jeff Townsend, and welcome to the most stupendous Twitter space in the world, Podcasting Power Hour. Greg joins me. His milkshake brings all the boys to the yard. Damn right, it's better than yours. Old Greg.
Yeah, cookies and cream always does it. I don't know what it is, but it's a crowd favorite. Hello, everyone. Greg here from Indie Drop-In Network. And thanks, Fuzz. I can't speak today.
Cut it. No, I'm just kidding.
I can't speak today. You can find
We'll fix it post, man.
You can find my last
cut
name. I've done some interviews, but nobody can say it or remember it, so I just don't bring it up. But yeah, thanks for coming. It looks like we have a huge crowd today, so hopefully we don't get too rowdy.
Yeah, I must just be the drizzling shits these days. What happened to like the 200 plus people? I must have scared them off.
Those are all Tanner's bots.
He does have a lot of bots. He's got to pay to fight off the bots. It's epic. Anyways, Fuzz, you can go ahead and introduce yourself as you're kind of like there's a captain, then there's a first officer, and what's the third? He's like the flight engineer.
Yeah.
You're my flight engineer, Fuzz.
I'm the navigator.
The bosun.
Yes, I'm the bosun. Hey, everybody. I'm Fuzz Martin. I am a former broadcaster. I am the owner and partner at a relatively large advertising agency, and I love podcasting. So, Jeff, thanks for putting this on.
No problem. Of course, some of the usuals, Jim, Eduardo wouldn't miss it for his life, and Jen is also here, and I see Michelle down there listening, and then some other people that are always here. So we appreciate your continued support and attendance. Greg, do you have something you want to kick us off with tonight, or do I need to do that?
No, I mean, I can kind of talk about some podcasting work that I'm doing and kind of some interesting observations. So I had my niece come over today, and she's doing some summer work, and she's helping me curate shows for Scary Time and comedy and true crime and all that stuff. And she yells down the stairs to me earlier today, and she's like, I found a show, but his intro music has seriously been going on for a minute and like 15 seconds. Is this a crappy show, or should I cut it? But I skipped to the middle and it seems okay. And it just is funny because she's 14, doesn't know anything about podcasting, and she hated it immediately. So just goes to show that I think some of the best practices are still universally appreciated, even by like new listeners. And so that's why I put that tweet out there today that said, hey, keep your intro music to less than 15 seconds, unless you're going to talk over it. And then Google ducking.
What if your intro music, and I'm saying this and I'm probably not even right, but my wife's intro music is really good, and it has a nice break at 20 seconds where you can talk over it. And if we would have to change up the entire flow of the intro if we switched it. So what are your thoughts on that? You're gonna tell me to cut it. I know you are.
I mean, you're pushing it, man. Like what I would do is I would go over to Apple Analytics, and see if anybody's dropping off. If they're not, okay, I would say you're fine. But on the 20th show, 20 seconds is going to drive me crazy. The first one, hey, might be okay.
I'll argue the other side of that, though. If the technology you have now when you're doing a podcast, you can skip forward 30 seconds. It's not a big deal once you get to the 15th show and you know that intro's there.
Yeah, but I don't think what you're fighting against is not like you got a couple of things happening here, right? So one is these little annoyances add up. So like there's a rule in customer satisfaction that's like death by 1,000 cuts, and then 100 people will be dissatisfied, but I think only like 3 or 4 will complain. So there's like these two kind of conspiring notions, and I'm messing up the math, I'm sure, but the sentiment is correct. So what you have to do, you have to do 2 things in podcasting. One is the friction has to be very low for continued listeners. Like it has to be fun, right? Like if you even notice in the show Seinfeld, they started cutting out the opening monologues, like because it was just, I don't know why, but I suspect it was just wearing people out. And then they would only put them in some episodes. Then, so then the other thing you want to do in podcasting is you want to optimize your first 60 seconds, because that's about how long it takes somebody to fumble around and find something else to listen to. So, you might be fine, Fuzz. You're very niche. That show is super niche. It's dialed in to the right audience. It's got some legs on it. Like you're probably fine, but pushing it.
So we did the thing that you were talking about a few of these episodes ago, and we took a break. So we're planning to come back the week after Labor Day. So if I'm going to change it, I need to change it now. But we're going on season 5, and that's like, it's kind of the branding of the show. It's part of the branding. So that's
what about if you started with voice and then
then went to it started the music?
Yeah.
Yeah. So like did a cold open, play the music,
Exactly.
and then go in. That's an interesting question. And I might have to play with that. We're going to record the first couple episodes this weekend, so I've got a couple weeks to play around with that. So I might do that.
I think you're in the zone where experimentation is, you're probably like plus one or minus, a few percentage points, right? I think the kind of the moral of the story is if you're playing your favorite song at the beginning of the podcast, you probably are doing it wrong. Is, you're probably like plus one or minus, a few percentage points, right? I think the kind of the moral of the story is if you're playing your favorite song at the beginning of the podcast, you probably are doing it wrong. A 20-second perfectly chosen song with a great break and, part of the branding, I think that's the least of your problems, it's probably fine.
Yeah. All right. Well, we'll play around with it. But I do agree with you. Like, I would say that I would rather listen to, and I might be the minority, but I would rather listen to a music bed than a pre-roll any day.
Oh my God. I think that's everybody, but we're not going to get away from pre-rolls anytime soon.
No, I understand, but it's tough. I mean, even the shows that no one like, shows that I listen to that aren't people even on here that I want to support. I pay for Patreon, do all that stuff, but I will skip the 2 minutes of pre-roll, magic spoon garbage every time because it's just, like I want to support them, but it's also like I can't like. This is
just dropped off their fuzz.
It was always you only have your audience's attention for a certain amount of time, and you could tell them, hey, support the show, go buy Magic Spoon, it's got these great flavors, they're peanut butter X, Y, and Z, and get out of it. And I'm more likely to go, use your promo code and go buy that than if you went on and talked for 2 minutes about the thing. I don't think longer is better. I think authentic and tying it into the show is better than trying to make. I don't know why, if it's the advertisers or if it's the podcasters that think that they need to have a longer spot in order to sell more stuff. So
just came here to say that there is an article that Brian Barletta wrote for Sounds Profitable. I want to say 10 months ago about this, that I think advertisers are starting to understand that more does not mean better value when it comes to the ad. A perfect ad could be 15 seconds long. So I would just encourage folks to go to soundsprofitable.com and search. I'll find it and I will share it. But I wanted to pop in really to say that I don't mind a pre-roll ad. But I think it's because I work in the podcast space and I also work in the ad tech space. And so I'm always interested to see how my favorite podcasters are getting compensated and who is paying the bills for them. And also how they creatively choose to talk about those podcasts. Like I was just listening right before I tuned into American History Tellers with Lindsey Graham. And he does such a good job doing podcast ads for companies that you've heard a million times before, but he just does such a great job bringing himself into it. And I'm sure David agrees with me because I know he loves Lindsey Graham too. And let me say, not Lindsey Graham, in case I get quoted, the historian and the podcaster, not the politician.
Nope, you're on record.
That soundbite is going to get some play. No, I'm just kidding. Just kidding.
I'm already taking note to manipulate that one.
So did I talk about my experiment, my pre-roll experiment here in this group? I don't know if I did. But on my true crime show, which is my biggest show, what I did was for 3 months, I swapped out, I turned off pre-rolls. I recorded a cold open. I kind of did a few things at once. I wanted to describe more about the show and about the creators. And then I played what I would normally play the pre-roll at like a minute and a half in or 2 minutes in, right? I would say, all right, well, we're going to get right to the show after, two 2 ads or something like that. And what I was trying to see is would my retention suffer? And there was absolutely zero change in my retention. So I almost think that people prefer to skip, or they have their podcast apps set to skip pre-rolls like 2 minutes in or something, because there was zero change. And what happened though is because my ads are dynamic for the most part, unless I sell a host read, is my revenue went way down, because now it looks like I have 5 mid rolls or some craziness in my podcast, because it's 2 minutes in qualifies as a mid roll for some reason. And Spreaker couldn't fill 3 slots or 5 slots or however many slots that was in my show. So it reduced my revenue by like 25%, which is significant. So for 3 months, I sucked a little wind and tested it out, and it didn't make any difference at all, which I thought was interesting.
Did you almost expect it to, really?
Yeah, I think that, my gut was telling me that people, I should say a comment set me down a rat hole, which is something you should never let happen to you. But because I'm showcasing other people's shows, I take it very personally, and I want to try to understand, is it their show? Is it the way I'm presenting them? Did I not describe them perfectly? Did I not sell it the way it should have been sold? Like, I'm very cautious that people give me their hard work. I want to make sure I do a good job. So this commenter said, "Oh, great. I'm skipping through these podcasts and I've heard 17 Dairy Queen ads," or something like that. And I thought to myself, oh my God, like, this is my life. Like, if this person's complaining, that means there's 100 people that hate this. And so I thought, okay, let's turn it off, see what happens. And I just assumed people might be scrolling and going, nope, sucky ad, next. Okay, indie dropping sucks. I'm going to whatever. But that is not the case. Maybe it is the case and they still hang up. I don't know, but it didn't show any difference.
Matt, go ahead. I know that you requested to speak. Matt, that's his name, right? Yeah. Okay, I was about to say it. I didn't forget your name.
How are y'all?
Good. How you doing, man?
Good. Just putting together my episode I'm releasing tomorrow. And, the intro, and I missed the past couple of minutes, I'm sorry, of the discussion, but intro is a fascinating topic because that's something I've always struggled with. And with the 2 artists that I produce, I usually start off, when y'all say 20 seconds of music, what's that defined as? There's just like 20 seconds of just music, and then you're going into the introduction?
Yeah.
Okay.
So think about it when you press play on a podcast and it's just music for 20 seconds.
Yep.
And then the host cuts in. So that's what we're talking about.
So I go, and I might be doing it. I'm learning something here. I start off, I try to get in and out as quick as I can. And I'll intro, like for Jack's show, I'll intro, the show, the host, who the guest is, and that's about 40 seconds. Host, the guest, some little housekeeping notes for about 20 seconds. Then at about the 40-second mark, I'll go into a 1-minute preview of the hour-long episode of the interview. And then I'll go into a 20-second pre-roll of our sponsor, and then the episode starts. The key is, I always say in the very beginning, coming up in 2 minutes is episode number 27 with Jim Lauderdale. So if people don't want to listen to all the BS in between, they know at approximately the 2-minute mark, they could just fast forward through it. That's the way I do it. I don't know if that's probably not the right way, but that's the best way I've come up with.
Yeah.
It's kind of like, go ahead, Ariel. Sorry, go ahead.
Just want to say there's no right way and wrong way. And I want to cut all of that out from podcasting because it's not radio, so you could decide that this week that is the right way and next week that is not the right way. But I think in general, a barrier is that a lot of people come in and they think there's a right way, there's a wrong way, not just for intros, but for everything. And I just want to get it in everyone's head that there's none. There's no right way. There's no wrong way.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to say. And I think your retention data will tell you if your audience is responding to your show early or not. And that's I love by the way, I love the clips in the front of the show. I know some people hate it. It's, but like if I can get a laugh or a build interest within the first couple of seconds, I mean, I prefer them to be completely upfront, like before anything. Like, I think Conan does it that way, where there'll be like a clip, a funny clip, and then music, and then they'll talk over the music. It's been a while since I listened to that show, but I always thought that was hilarious because I was instantly waiting for that section of the show.
And interesting that you say that, because I used to do that. I used to kick it off right with the 1 minute preview coming up in 1 minute. Bam, right into it, and then I'll intro the guest. Last but not least, the biggest debate that I've had with Jack and with this new show I'm producing with Brad, it'd be interesting to hear y'all's feedback. And I've debated this with Jack for a year and a half. And that is when you're introing a guest. So, like Jim Lauderdale's coming tomorrow. He's had 9 songs cut by George Strait, 2-time Grammy Award winner. Emmylou Harris produced a record with her, blah, blah, blah. And then I go, and then Jack and Jim start talking, right? Trying to get the natural flow of the first 20, 30 seconds of them walking into the room and talking. So I like to introduce the guest because it's kind of like, my analogy is, it's kind of like you don't want the headline band introducing the headline band. So Jack sometimes says, well, I want to introduce the guest. So I said, well, Jack, you don't. So these listeners need to know how many Grammys they've won or how many hits they've written and all that stuff. And if you're not going to do it, somebody has to. And then that will be me. If you can do it, great. If not, then I'm going to have to do it.
Yeah. To stop you there, I would just say if you have a star introducing somebody, I think I would rather hear, as the listener, I'd rather hear intro them than, and this is no knock on you at all. But like in my opinion, your job is to make that show awesome and to step back into the shadow, and allow your host that you're producing to be in the spotlight. And what I would recommend, in my opinion, would be for you to give him all of the, like, maybe even like just bullet up, like, here's all the stuff about this guest that we have coming up, and put it in a way that it's going to make Jack look like the star. And the more the better you make him sound, man, the better that show's going to be.
I'm going to have to shove, and thanks for this feedback, man. It's priceless, because my next time we tape Sunday, and I'm going to Nashville tomorrow to do a show, and I'm going to put 6 bullet points and then shove it in their face and go, when they all sit down and start talking, you've got to introduce via these bullet points. Because if you don't do it, I'm going to have to do it, and I don't want to do it. Star, I'm not. So I appreciate the feedback. It really is priceless.
Yeah, like it's always hard to, like, even when you're interviewing big names and all that, you want them to, the brighter they are, the better everybody else shines in that. So, and from your place, you don't need to be the star of that. You're going to get all the residuals of putting that together, being the guy that makes that happen. You're going to be in the background. That's just the deal, because you're working with celebrities. But that's where you need to be the guy that keeps them all on track, because it's like herding cats, right? So
yeah, exactly.
So
I appreciate it. Yeah,
you're welcome, man. Of course.
Yeah, I have no opinion here. I've heard shows where the producers are very active, like the man behind the glass, and they chime in and they add to the conversation, and so I would say, I think Fuzz has a point, but I don't think what you're necessarily doing is wrong. I mean, your show has got to feel for, you got to give it your own fingerprint. So, if it feels right, I would say do it. If your listeners respond to it, I say do it. But you might want to try to switch it up and just give it a feel.
How much of that retention rate is correct on Charlie? Because
0.
Okay, got it. That's what I thought. Because I looked at that. I'm like, come on, there's no way these people are listening to that much of that content.
I mean, it just depends on if you're synced with Apple and Spotify. The Apple and Spotify data is absolutely accurate.
Mm-hmm.
The retention, the episode to episode retention is based on IPs and things like that, which change a lot on mobile phones. So it's it's kind of garbage data in, garbage data out. I mean, it's accurate according to them. It's technically accurate, but I just think that those types of measures are tough to quantify.
Yeah. And who's all going to podcast movement here in a couple of weeks in Dallas?
I didn't make the cut. I did not make the cut.
Yeah, I'm debating about going. I have till tomorrow to make the decision, according to my wonderful wife.
Do you want me to give you an endorsement, or how would you like to proceed? Jacking around.
Endorsement of going to podcast movement?
Yeah, I have. I can steer you in either direction, but I can tell you about my positive experiences there.
I went to the Nashville one last year, and it was it was fantastic.
Good.
I've got to go. I'm gonna go. I just have to fight the internal, personal, wonderful bride battle. But this time it's important for me to go because of this new show that I'm launching in November. So what's your experience been like? Positive?
Oh, extremely. So I can pretty much point all of my podcast career successes back to Podcast Movement Anaheim in 2017 because I used my Moxie and I got to go for free, which was amazing. And I made connections that I still am in touch with to this day. I can trace like 3 jobs back to Podcast Movement. So I am really, really just grateful for Podcast Movement, for the connections, for the schmoozing. And that goes for all podcast conferences. Like I see Anna is here in the chat, and she has a podcast conference in Atlanta that's also amazing. But yeah, I am a big fan of when podcast people get together.
How important, if in the hypothetical, and I'll shut up after this one, I promise, with the questions. If Jack and this other artist I'm working with, Brad, if they had the opportunity in the hypothetical to play for the conference at, let's say, 5:00, would that be a pretty big opportunity for them to get in front of the XM radio folks and whatnot? Or would that be a waste of their time at any podcast conference, maybe Podcast Movement?
What do you mean play? Like to do a live show?
Yeah, do a live show. I mean, there might be an opportunity. There's been an opportunity where if I lean on them hard enough, I think they would do it. I just don't want them to show up and then look at me and go, "Oh my God, I don't know what they're in for."
Yeah, I'll say it's hard to predict if people would attend because they have a lot of sessions going on at once. You have to submit the sessions in advance. So it depends. If you wanted to have it as an official Podcast Movement event, they would have had to submit it, I think, back in March. But if you wanted to do something like outside of town or outside of the event,
it's the last minute idea I've been talking to the conference about. And so
got it.
I just don't know if it would be the best opportunity for Jack or Brad to do that, because I don't want them to look at me like I'm crazy when they show up and play and nobody's paying attention.
It's hard. It's hard to tell. I don't know. You went to some in Nashville, I imagine, and it's really hit or miss when it comes to even if it's like an amazing speaker, if they're up against somebody who's also an amazing speaker, there could be 5 people in the session, even though there are 3,000 people there. It's really hard to say.
Got it. Great. I appreciate all the feedback, everybody. I really do.
Jim Mallard, do you have anything to throw in? You've been strangely quiet on the topic of the intros.
No, I think it's wildly depends by show and niche, and I don't know. I've battled it for years too. So
Thank you, Jim.
Yep.
I think. All right, so we're about halfway through here. We'll go ahead and reset. And David, are you ready?
Yes, I am. So, hey everyone, I'm David. I'm here to pitch my show, which is called Conscious Business Leaders. And
wait, is this the guy that we've been waiting for like 7 years?
Yeah.
Yeah, this is him.
All right. So, Conscious Business Leaders is a podcast that shares the stories of seasoned entrepreneurs who have built profitable companies while maintaining a mission of helping others.
Boom.
I feel like you've been coached on that
I don't get
because
to
it was
say
pretty
this.
clean.
I don't get to say this enough, but say it while smiling.
All right, let me retry saying
I don't get to say that enough to men. Men say that to me, so I get to say it to you now. Go ahead.
All right. Conscious Business Leaders is a podcast that shares the stories of seasoned entrepreneurs who have built profitable companies while maintaining a mission of helping others.
Boom. I
Now
heard the
say-
difference.
That
Did
did
anybody else
sound
hear the
better,
difference?
actually.
Now say it while grumpy. Just kidding.
Ed, you've been asking for this for weeks. What do you think? Eduardo Havens, the eighth. What do you think?
He's probably got a grilled cheese in his mouth.
He's probably making grilled cheese sandwiches, avocado, and
octogenarian.
Oh, right.
Yeah, even his grilled cheeses are too high class for us.
Well, we have a substitute Ed that just jumped up to speak.
Thanks, Jeff.
We'll go to the next Ed.
Thanks, Jeff. What's my podcast called again?
The greatest song ever sung. Shitty.
Correct. Good job. No, I just want to co-sign what Ariel said. I've been in sales and sales training for 20 plus years, and that is literally one of the first things we tell people if they have anything to do with phone calls and their job is you can hear a smile through a phone. So I'm happy Ariel said that. I like hearing those points validated. And David, your pitch does sound much better than the last time you put it out there. So good job, man.
Thanks. Yeah, that's a really good point too. Like even when recording too, I've noticed that like when you try to like smile and have good posture, it definitely sounds better.
You got to hype yourself up to do anything audio. I mean, you really do. Like even on bad days.
That's your elevator pitch. And then what would you say is your most pressing need? Are you trying to get more listeners, trying to get more interviews, trying to get more downloads? Where are you right now?
At this point, I would say more listeners. Last week, I was struggling a little bit with getting guests, but then after getting some feedback from the community and stuff, I actually did get a few more interviews booked. So I'm actually booked out for like a month now. So at this point, probably just focusing on getting listeners. I know I need to start reaching out to like newsletters at some point soon. So I think that's probably like my next step.
I think saying that you're trying to get more newsletters was you just placating Ariel here. Ariel, by the way, is it Ariel or Ariel? Because I never know, and I feel bad when I say your name.
Don't feel bad. Your name is Fuzz.
Thank you.
However it comes out of your mouth is lovely for me.
Okay. Perfect. Thank you.
Tanner says Ariel.
I don't mind Ariel, Ariel. It's really fine. My best friend calls me Ariel, and my parents call me Ariel. So I don't know. I don't know what my name is.
Tanner just sent out a tweet. I'm at dinner, but Jeff sucks. So thank you, Tanner. You're missed. You can see it in the comments section down below to your right, which is a new feature. So if you are listening and you don't want to come up and speak, but you have something you want to say or ask, you can do that down there. Look in the bottom right-hand corner.
So I've got a question for Dan. What type of guest and who are you looking for? I guess is the first question.
For guests, you said?
Yeah, for guests. I mean, obviously, we'd all like Mark Cuban, but I mean, what type of people are you looking for to be guests?
I'm looking for founders of companies that basically like do good for others, like their employees or like customers. I mean, it's funny you said Mark Cuban because I feel like he actually would be a good example. Like his new prescription drugs company. I don't know if you've heard of it, but it's been like lowering prices for consumers. But yeah, basically entrepreneurs that are like actually helping people in addition to making money.
Hey, Dave, send me a direct message after this, okay? I might have somebody for you.
Okay, sounds good.
Where
Of
are you
course.
currently?
Oh, sorry.
Oh, go ahead. No, you're first.
Just wanted to say, of course, you got to interview the Squadcast boys.
Yeah, I had to redo the interview, but it's coming out soon.
Okay, good to know.
David, where are you currently? How are you currently looking for guests for your show?
So a lot of them I've been finding on Twitter and LinkedIn. Now that I'm thinking about it, like I'm not even sure how I come across some of these people, but like sometimes I'll just like see business owners, kind of explore the business. If I see that there's something interesting there, I dive into it a little bit more. But it seems like a lot of cold outreach, to be honest.
Are you asking for a referral at the end of your interview?
I actually have been, yeah, and that's how I did get a couple of them. Because Zach and Rock gave me a couple people that I have booked. So I've gotten a couple referrals. I've heard that that's a really good practice, so I've been trying to do that.
Yeah, because you can name drop the person who referred you.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Got a few people that
have you tried going big, like Bill Gates, Warren Buffett kind of stuff?
I haven't yet. I mean, I would honestly like to have Mark Cuban. I think he actually would be a really good fit for it, but I got to think about how I can get an introduction to him.
I mean, like Mackenzie Scott, what's his name's ex-wife?
Oh, Jeff
Bezos.
Bezos. Yeah.
Yeah, Bezos. Yeah. Like,
Is she a conscious business leader?
Yeah, I mean, she gave away a giant chunk of her earnings to nonprofits. Like that's her thing. So.
Oh, I didn't even know that. That's interesting.
She's given $8.6 billion in 2 years to 780 plus organizations.
It's a lot of money.
That is a lot of money.
I'll double down on that. Just start finding these people that you're interested in and start sending them emails, because the worst that's going to happen is they don't reply. A few of them will send you back a no, and then one of these days you'll open up your email and there'll be yeah, we can do that, and you'll just probably shit your pants. Honestly.
Yeah, feel it.
All right, we have a couple people that have requested here. Anna, you're up first. Then I know Chris will follow.
Hi, I'm new to this Twitter world, so I hope I'm doing this right. I don't even know what the process is, but what I came up here to ask about is I'm in the process of launching a new show for myself. And this is mainly, it's going to be called The Content Trapper. It's mainly because, oh wait, it says my connection was lost. Is my connection back?
We hear you.
You're good.
Okay.
Yeah, you're good.
But no, it's called The Content Trapper. And a lot of it is because my community has been asking to hear more from me specifically, which I struggle with. We've talked about this. The premise of the show is mixed. Part of it is me talking to content entrepreneurs about how they're utilizing content in their business, especially because really it's a new wave of things, but also focusing in on equipment. So I also own a 1,500 square foot studio in the heart of Atlanta. And so it's also talking through like the ups and downs of having a team of 13 people and, managing over 20 shows and the studio and the equipment and the wins and the fails and all of those things that go into it. And I think I'm just trying to figure out how to properly structure it, because part of it will have a YouTube component where I'm reviewing like equipment and some of the things that have worked and not worked. And then the other part will be more so just the podcast element that's more so focused on content entrepreneurs. And I hope all of that made sense. I'm going to stop talking now.
Yes, definitely made sense. You're in a really cool spot, which is that you haven't yet formatted it, which means that you can build marketing into every single aspect of your show, which is going to be really, really important in order for it to reach a wider audience. If it were me, I was listening to a show today that I really liked the way things were segmented. Let me try to remember that, because I really like shows that your audience knows what to tune in for. They have special names of the segments. The segments don't always have to episode. I think one of them is called Hysteria. It's from Crooked Media. I really like the show because they have their regular chat up top. It's a 2-person co-host show, but then they always have 2 or one guest at the bottom half of the show, or the bottom half of the show. And then at the end of that conversation, they do a roundtable with those guests and then they do like I think they call it like a sanity corner or something like that. And it's just something that me as a listener, I am learning to anticipate and get excited for. And then if I tweet at them, I'll say, loved this section of the show, something like that. So I would encourage you, for all of the segments that you mentioned, to come up with a way to make that enticing for listeners, and so that they can possibly call into that show. Maybe not now, maybe that's too much for your launch, but sometime in the future, you can start garnering voice clips that you eventually play. But yeah, okay, end of rant. I just think build marketing into everything. Think marketing at every stage.
Perfect. Greg, what do you got?
Well, Jeff, I know why you came to me next, because I love the idea. I think it's amazing, but it sounds to me like one is a podcast and one is a YouTube channel. And I think the gear review life of a studio owner, mix some vloggy content, sounds a lot like Peter McKinnon, and awesome. Like super awesome. And then the content podcast sounds equally cool for a deeper dive, more intellectual type of content. And I mean, I don't know if I would break the niche and put them together, but that's just my craziness with niche. Like, I think that niche is the most important thing that you can do in starting any content creation enterprise.
I don't disagree about niche. I say niche, but it doesn't matter. I don't disagree. What I do think, though, Anna, because I know your community has asked for this show, and I imagine that you have done some either surveying or just anecdotal chatting with them to find out what they want from you, and that's why you're going in this direction. What I would recommend actually is 4 episodes per month. Twice a month are your flagship episodes. It's the segment of the show that you're having the conversations. And then the other 2 times throughout the month, that's when you're quote unquote breaking format, breaking niche. The example that I will point to here is a podcast called How to Do the Pot. It's a podcast geared towards women who are interested in cannabis. 2 episodes per month. She talks about something having to do with the cannabis industry, or what to do if you get too high, or here are the strains that you should try out if you want to go to sleep better. But then the other 2 times per month are short episodes, 2 to 5 minutes long. And speaking of building marketing into every step, they are user generated. People call in and leave 2 to 5 minute voice clips about the first time they bought legal weed. So those stories are always, we know what to expect. She can call on her community to share their own stories so that the community feels a part of it. And if people don't want to listen to a 45-minute episode, if they're new listeners just checking out the feed for the first time, they can get a taste of the host and a taste of the show and the vibe of the show with a 2 to 5 minute episode. So I'm not saying you do a 2 to 5 minute episode. What I am saying is it might be interesting to incorporate these, that people get used to the cadence of the show being twice a month this, twice a month this. They can tune in for both. They can tune in for either. And that's what I would recommend.
I like all. Oh, go ahead, Buzz.
No, I was just going to say, I think that sounds brilliant, and I wholly endorse that. I think that sounds like something that would be fun to listen to. It would be great for the audience, and that's some wonderful advice as usual.
So, I don't know a lot of people in here. I think the only person I do know is Ariel. So just to give a little bit more background into me, which hopefully will be helpful. I have a podcast community called Black Pod Collective, and then a podcast conference called Black Pod Festival. And so I've traditionally stayed pretty behind the scenes. I don't really share a lot about myself. It's more so focused on my community. My community consists of about 500 members across the globe, and they're paid members. And then we have those who are not in the community that just kind of come to the conference. The biggest feedback from the conference and just the biggest feedback in general has been people want to learn more about my journey and me as the individual, which I struggle with. So I think I'm trying to incorporate more of me. So part of that is like the content portion of it, the entrepreneurship portion, and all of those pieces. And so I've kind of gone back and forth between like certain things will just be for the YouTube channel, i.e., I don't want to review an app on a podcast because of the fact that you can't see it. So I feel like I want to do some video that is just for the YouTube channel where it's like I'm reviewing some of the apps that I use for clients, some of the things that I enjoy, or just reviewing new things that I'm like, I didn't know how to use this. And then other elements would be like me talking about how I jumped into entrepreneurship from a 10-year career in healthcare. And that would just be on the podcast itself, but we would do like video. It would still be recorded fully, but to do video clips for social media, but not for the premise of it being released to YouTube. Does that make more sense, or does it make better sense for this to be I don't know, it feels like a hodgepodge the more I keep talking, but yeah.
You have a team behind you, right? You have video producers, audio producers.
Yeah, I have a team.
In that case, I would go crazy and have separate feeds. I mean, the reason I usually suggest that people combine feeds or just consolidate is because they don't have the resources, but you have the resources and you have the community asking for it, in which case I would make it as easy to understand as possible. And what can unite those two entities is branding and logos and things like that. But yeah, I mean, there are going to be people tuning in for different reasons. So I actually go back on what I said before, based on the extra knowledge that you gave us, and I would separate those entities.
So I think you have a amazing reach already. I think, when you have people asking to know your journey, I mean, that's as good as it gets for starting something like this, I think. So you also have this opportunity where video content, I think, is going to amplify your message to an extent that I think that might be superior to audio, especially if you're doing like conventions and you have all these other things going on. Like, people would love to see your journey in setting up the conferences and how do you get speakers, and that is kind of vloggy, but it's also your life and it's what they're asking to be exposed to, not just the journey but the current. It sounds like more about you, and to me, I think that's the star. I mean, you're doing things that people only dream about doing. That's a life, I think, would be very positive impact to share.
Yeah, it's super awesome meeting you, by the way. And I think Ariel's right. If you have a team, that's a great opportunity to just go crazy. Yeah, Michelle, go ahead.
My one thought as you were talking about all these different components that you want to build out, I would really spend a lot of time thinking about how this is a funnel into your business and how you can optimize that. Like, it's great to share your story and all of that kind of thing. But you're sharing your story not only for people who already know you, but for people to get to know you, like to bring them into the community that you're building. By the way, I've been looking to go to your conference for 2 years now, but of course with the COVID, so I'm very excited to see the new dates up on the website. So like, there are people who've been quietly watching what you've been doing for a while now. Obviously, COVID's impacted like in-person connections, but we're out there kind of watching. And so I would say very strongly, how can you get people on your email list with the content that you're sharing? It's not enough to have a YouTube channel and review a product. Like, if you're bringing a product in front of people because you love it, understand that you can also be an affiliate for that product and optimize that authentically and ethically because you love that product. So just I would think about your funnel. I would think about the monetization opportunities within that funnel that are ethical for you. And because you're building it out and you have a team, like game on. And congratulations. I'm excited to see it. I'm excited to subscribe and to finally go to New York in the sweltering heat of summer. So congratulations.
Thank you so much. That always warms my heart when I meet anybody who, wants to join us on this journey. So hopefully I get to meet you in person next year. I will probably be shooting you an episode so you can listen to it before I release, because I'm very big on doing focus groups for clients. So I'm gonna treat myself like a client for once.
Yeah, again, super awesome meeting you. I gave you a follow. Sounds like you're doing amazing.
Podcasting Power Hour is part of Indie Drop-In Network. If you are a podcaster looking to grow your listeners, check out IndieDropIn.com. Indie Drop-In is always free, and we have opportunities right now for comedy, true crime, scary, and paranormal podcasts. Just go to IndieDropIn.com to learn more.
You've had two people waiting patiently. Sticky Paws, I see you have your hand up. Chris, is it okay if Sticky Paws goes first?
Yeah, that's perfectly fine.
Okay. It's very kind of you. Sticky Paws, nice to meet you. What you got going on?
Hi there. Can you guys hear me?
You sound beautiful.
Loud and clear.
Thank you guys so much. My name is Travis. I am the founder of Sticky Paw Studios in Las Vegas, Nevada. I was looking at the article that was attached to this Podcasting Power Hour, and I've been listening for a bit, and it's like really awesome to hear all the different perspectives of marketing and advertising and getting sponsors and getting affiliate codes and making some money for podcasting. We specialize in audio and video podcasting. We kind of treat our business closer to a broadcast studio in the way that we do everything live, even if it's not live. We have a 5-camera setup with as many mics as you need. We have close-ups and a wide shot, and we have a rig that can run intros, outros, audio clips, etc. We can attach Discord, a call-in feature, etc. What I really wanted to talk about is just the idea of monetizing a podcast and how many people tend not to reach out to their network for podcasting. They think that podcasting is just about creating content and then hoping somebody will see it. And I wanted to open up the forum and kind of discuss this way of podcasting that not many people consider. And it's podcasting and advertising through their guests and monetizing day one with no listeners simply through basically social media influencer marketing as a podcast instead of podcast marketing to sponsors. And I'll explain a little bit further. We have our studio is basically just a home for a network called Podcast Junkies Network. The son of famous singer Tony Orlando of the 70s, his name is John Orlando, hosts a show called Action Junkies. And there's a bunch of other shows like Fitness Junkies, Political Junkies, Weed Junkies, 420 Junkies, etc. And we hope to build out the brand and keep expanding. But the one thing we do that most others don't consider is we focus on getting guests of influence ranging from, 100,000 followers on Instagram or 1 million followers on TikTok or however the cookie crumbles, and reaching out to sponsors based off of the not the viewership of the podcast or the listenership of the podcast, but the clips and the content we make from the pillar content is what we call the podcast. So we've structured our podcast studio to be kind of like a content farm for our clients and our internal podcasts. So for example, we create 6 pieces of content from a single podcast so we can have consistent content coming out every single day. We focus mostly on Reels, TikTok, YouTube Shorts, because that is getting most of the engagement these days. So for our Action Junkies show, we have a guest, Lacey K. Summers. She has 11 million followers on Instagram. What we would normally do is we would reach out to sponsors that have her demographic and say, we're going to have Lacey K. Summers. She has 11 million followers. If we're close enough with her, which specifically we are, we would ask her for her general engagement and her demographic, and we go out to a sponsor. For example, I believe a few years ago, probably more than a few, like 6, we reached out to whoever the studio is for Fast and Furious, and we were able to work out a deal under the guise that the engagement will be between 1 and 3 million engagements, a $5,000 one-time podcast sponsorship, simply by getting Lacey to agree to the fact that she likes going to the movies, and she would see Fast and Furious 6 or whatever the movie was coming out at the time. But we take that idea and we keep on expanding it, where we get somebody with only 5,000 followers on Instagram, and we use their name and their audience to make content for ourselves and give them clips to post on their personal page. So when we go back to the advertisers, we not only include the listenership of the actual audio on Spotify and all the other platforms and video, but we include how many people saw the clips and what was included in the clips. We, show their logo. We have product placement in the background. We have organic advertising, which is like, I love Jersey Mike's. I'd eat there every single day. It's funny. We have a story about Jersey Mike's XYZ. And then that becomes kind of like an engaging aspect to advertising. So I was wondering if you guys have explored that kind of basically traditional, I guess it's funny I'm saying traditional, like influencer marketing through podcasting, rather than approaching it from I'm building a brand first and then looking for advertising after 30, 40, 50 episodes and community building. What do you guys think?
Well, not all of us have Wiz Khalifa coming to our studio.
Oh, that's funny.
So
that was an anomaly.
The ability to do some of the things that you're talking about are limited by. I think I would say that there's a number of us here who are who do things that aren't just podcasting, and therefore aren't spending as much time focused on that as we probably would like to be. So I'm not speaking for everybody. There are some of you here who do that day in, day out. That's the thing that you do. But the ability to go out and do that outreach and find those sponsors and find those opportunities when you're when that's going to make or break your getting the bills paid, that's one thing, versus those of us who are doing this in addition to running another business, so or working or whatever that might be. So it's a very good question. I'm not sure, and I don't I can't speak for everybody, but I would say that it's I feel like what you're doing is a different level than, or a different style than a lot of us are doing here currently.
Yeah, so, I agree. Mm-hmm.
Jeff or Greg, got anything on that?
Yeah.
I mean, I don't have too much. What I would say is I am very supportive of anyone who can put together a story and go pitch a sponsor before they've got any sort of track record. Now, you seem to have a track record, and I think it's probably easier today than it was, well, you said 6 years ago.
Oh, fantastically easier. It's
right.
Bigger repertoire. Yeah,
exactly. So I think, there's one kind of constant thing with sponsors, just from my experience, is that when you don't sell the 25 mattresses, you get pissed. So, I think if you can team up with somebody who has a larger reach and a higher engagement in order to put together a package that is good for you and good for everybody, I think that's smart. I know people who do that with series. I know people that go out and get funding for like audio dramas. So it's definitely done in podcasting, but finding sponsors is a full-time job. I would bet you have someone that specializes in this and probably does this for you.
Yeah, we have a kind of like a collective of people who, depending on the ranking of the sponsor, we have people fishing for that.
Yeah.
But they're among other things, of course.
Yeah. And you've probably built pitch decks, and you probably have stats, and you probably have, you got data people looking at these analytics, and you've got a process that you've cultivated over time. And all that stuff is IP that's very, very valuable that you've learned through blood, sweat, and tears. And you're right, other people can do it, but it's like, when you see somebody playing the piano, it looks damn easy. But when you sit behind the piano, it's hard.
The one thing I like, the analogy I like to make is like, we're not in like the advertising business, we're in the billboard business. We're essentially like, how do billboard people sell billboards? It's about just like viewerships and people who pass on the street. One of our biggest kind of pitches to in Vegas, like law firms are really big, for example. So we have a lot of meetings with those people, and they will spend $10,000, $20,000, $30,000 on a billboard for no like direct return and non-monetizable return, really. I mean, you can't prove that this billboard is what sent them to you. Was it the 7 billboards? Was it the commercial, et cetera? So we leveraged the ambiguity of kind of that kind of marketing to these people who are used to that traditional marketing, and sell them on the idea that as long as people are seeing your brand, the demographic they want in a way that's engaging. Because we make the argument as well, like not even the drivers are paying attention to the road, let alone the billboards. They're on their phone. The passengers, of course, on their phone. You're in a taxi, they're on your phone. Like, where are you seeing these billboards now in a non-obtrusive way? And the answer to that is basically through social media content, which I guess our pillar of that is podcasting. But I guess it could be anything, right? If you do a Twitch stream that's just 8 hours long, you can cut that up and then splice that and sell that as sponsorship as well.
But I do sorry, Ariel,
Go ahead, Greg. Finish your thought.
I was gonna say, I do think it's brilliant that you can get like, some $11 million Instagram follower to say, I love Jersey Mike's, and then you make a clip of it. So, bravo.
Yeah, I'm not going to lie. She's kind of in the cahoots with us. She's like a kind of a partner, but it's just, what's it to her? Go, Ariel.
Do you know about Podcorn?
Podcorn? No, I'm not familiar.
Podcorn is great if you are looking to potentially connect with advertisers who are already familiar with sponsoring on podcasts. It's a marketplace that connects podcasters with advertisers. The advertisers lay out the demographics that they're looking to hit, the minimum downloads, the campaign length, how much they're willing to spend, things like that. And then you pitch to them. You say, our podcast has this. We do weekly. We can offer a mid-roll at this. We can offer a pre-roll at this, post-roll at this. And also we can do creative integration, or we can do this type of ad, like really totally an interesting, flexible platform that I've had a lot of success on with the right pitches and the right partners. It's also a great way to just see who's doing what. And something that I have done is seen who is advertising there, gone to their competitors who are not advertising there, and pitched them on my own. So that is another way to potentially find sponsors.
That's a fantastic platform. And does this platform like take like a cut of like as like a broker fee between that?
It does.
And it's like,
it does.
Yeah.
I believe it's 10%.
Oh, okay. That's not too bad. We tend to stay away from, obviously, because our idea is not like the cost per million kind of thing where they take 30% of the pre-roll ads. We actually advertise or advise against that to our clients simply because it's like advertising before people actually care about you tends to piss people off. We found out, like the community of people. But I love that kind of networking tool and the fact that you kind of go to the competitors of the people who are already kind of doing that.
Yeah, that's outside of Podcorn, of course. That would be your own.
Of course. I mean, that's just a brilliant tactic. I really appreciate the knowledge on that. We focus mostly on boots on the ground, kind of cold calling or through relationships with other people. But we want to kind of get the $500, the $200 a month kind of sponsors as well for our lower level podcasts that can't.
Yeah. I also think a big opportunity is available for people who are not yet advertising on podcasts but need to be need to be sold on why that would be helpful for them. So even just building out a deck that says, podcast advertising 101 and why you should do it with Sticky Paws. Is that what you're called? Yes.
Yeah.
That would be something that I would just have handy.
That's fantastic advice. And I would have a kind of like a follow-up kind of like thing, not to cut anyone off, they've been waiting, but is like video on Spotify. What is your guys' opinion on this new kind of pseudo audio video podcasting world where video is coming back around and touching the audio listeners? Have you guys explored that as like the place where your video content lives to kind of direct the top of the funnel there? What is your guys' opinion?
TBD. No one knows. I mean, I did, one of the shows that I do infrequently is a video show, and I put it, I signed up with Anchor just so I could do video on Spotify, just so I could understand it. And, I put the same video on YouTube and it outperforms 100 to 1. So I don't know. Who knows?
I think my opinion on it is if your audience is big enough to start with, I think it's great. I think if you're starting off, I would put your efforts elsewhere until you make it big, because I don't think on Spotify's platform, the discoverability is going to be high enough that it's going to make it worth your efforts to put it there versus something like YouTube or just podcasting in general.
It's more of a yes and kind of thing, like put it both for the convenience of the listener.
That's exactly what I did. Exactly. Yep. And YouTube's algorithm is so good, and Spotify is basically like 1990s search.
However, on the contrary, Spotify now has a form where you can submit to be featured. And my guess, just like how Apple is very much prioritizing their in-app real estate for podcasts that have paid programs, Spotify will start prioritizing some of their in-app real estate for podcasts that have video podcasts hosted on Spotify or Anchor or Megaphone or whatever it is. So that is just something to keep in mind.
That's what I'm hoping for. That's exactly why I did it.
Mm-hmm. That's fantastic. I also like the fact that it's again, speaking to our tactics to getting sponsors, is the ambiguity of like who's actually watching. Some people, you can look bigger than you are if there's no viewer count at the bottom of your video. You send someone to your YouTube video or their podcast, they see that 4 people watched it. They might look lower on your podcast simply because of the kind of like the entourage effect of, other people aren't listening. Send them to your audio video podcast on Anchor. They might not make that same assumption off the bat.
Hey, I appreciate you coming up and talking. I do know.
Thank you.
I'm a man of my word, and we have 2 people waiting, so I will stay on and over.
I appreciate it.
Oh, no problem at all. Chris, I know you've been waiting patiently, man. I appreciate it.
Hey, man, no, it's been a pleasure to sit and wait, because it's given me a chance to smoke another joint and actually enjoy myself for once, because it has been a whirlwind of one of the weirdest experiences I can possibly explain. So I'm going to give the elevator pitch of what's going on. I was contacted by someone because of my notoriety in the cannabis industry. For those who don't know me, I'm a political lobbyist. I'm actually the only U.S. citizen that I know of in the South, especially, that's not a lawyer or former elected official or someone that studied political science in college that decided to open up their first public lobbyist firm in North Carolina solely for the legalization of cannabis and psychedelics nationwide. And that has gotten me a lot of notoriety with a very small group of people, but a very important and powerful group of people that have been helping me along this way and kind of helping me navigate the waters of this journey. So one of those people reached out to me and said, hey, there's this tattoo convention that's got a national following. It's got a freak show that goes with it. It's got a live suspension show. There's like guys and stars from Ink Master. I've bought a 4.5-year contract that it gives us exclusivity to be the only CBD, Delta 8, and THC vendor for the whole 22 shows that they do nationwide. I need somebody to run Raleigh because I'm stuck in Florida this month. And I'm like, okay, I've heard pitches like this before. This guy's probably going to burn me like everybody else. I've learned my lesson too many times now. Hell, I'm still trying to recoup the $26,000 I lost in that small business loan scandal that some of you know about, that now has my case elevated to the level of the FBI because of how many people he stole from that day. So, I've been down this road before, so obviously I'm hesitant. And I've still got the podcast that I'm trying to focus on with Weed to People at the same time. but this was just too good of an offer to pass up. I'm like, wait, you want me to go in my hometown where I'm the face of legalized weed and sell product for 3 days at a tattoo convention that's filled with a freak show when I'm a former circus performer myself? Yes, when do you need me there? So he offered to pay me $350, wasn't expecting much performance out of me. I knocked out $10,000 in sales on Saturday alone. He was so impressed by the performance that they've offered me a contract now. And this has all happened within the last 2 weeks. I fly out to Jersey on Thursday. I get back from Jersey on Monday, and then I have to turn around and fly to Dallas the next Thursday, then Cincinnati, then New Orleans, and so on through major cities up until June of next year. And then I just wash, rinse, and repeat for the next 4.5 years. All the licensing's been taken care of. All the compliance issues have been taken care of. But the beauty of this is that there are some states we're going to go to where we've partnered with people that already have the licenses to sell cannabis openly because it's legal in that state for recreational means. That means that, someone who has been a cannabis grower since he was 16 years old, that is known as an outlaw in his own state, that has stood up in front of the state and said, I am a criminal for choosing medicinal cannabis to cure my brain tumor 5 years ago. I'm going to have the opportunity finally to stand in a legal state and actually sell weed openly without fear of arrest, search, or seizure for the first time in my life. And I feel like that needs to be recorded, and not for my own notoriety. I never do anything for my own notoriety. This is always about bringing light to the greater cause of, legalization that needs to happen across the board, and decriminalization and all of the social justice reforms programs that I work on. The problem is I'm about to go mobile. I've got maybe 1 week I could think of before December that I'm going to have off to myself. And I've only got my phone. My laptop died last week. We're probably not going to turn the profit that I want to turn until about 2 shows, because I found out that the geniuses behind this have been doing this old school hustle deal where they've been paying for each show as it happens. So all the profit that we make from Jersey, a good portion of that has to pay for the next show and some money that's still left over from Raleigh that I was unaware of. Fortunately, I got the power of attorney today. So I'm taking over all the financial accounts for it. I already talked to the attorneys. There's no back taxes I have to worry about. After Dallas, I should be finally in the green for once with this company. So I'm really saving their ass on that part, and they're very grateful for it. But I don't know what to do with all this. I feel like I'm being forced into a spotlight because basically all I do is I go to this convention with Villain Arts Tattoos and I stand in front of 15,000 people a day. That's a captive audience while I've got a little Bluetooth speaker and I'm dancing around while I'm dressed from head to toe in a black and red leather circus outfit, looking at people going, you want to be as high as me right now, $20 and I'll change your life. Come on in here and see what you get. And the next thing I know, they're walking out $360 of product in their hand. And I'm doing that all day long. And everybody's just kind of how that they can't figure out how I'm doing it. And it's because I feel like this is really what I was born to do. I've always been passionate about this. And I finally get to bring medicine to the people on a national scale. But I don't want to say that I don't know how to monetize it. But my biggest problem is, how do I do this mobile wise? I don't really have a team that can follow me. I have an amazing producer that I can email things to that does all the episodes of my podcast, the intro music, the outro music. If you've ever listened to an episode, for somebody that's as small in this game as I am, he put some soul into that. And some of the episodes he's produced have even made me sit on the floor and just go, that's not mine. There's no way that's mine. But I just don't know what to do with the mobility of this. And I was wondering if anyone has had any experience of just kind of starting out where you've got all of these possibilities in front of you, but really no capital to work with and nothing more than an iPhone.
Man, if that's the elevator pitch, I'd hate to hear the whole story and see how long it took.
It's been years.
But to be honest, I think you kind of already have an idea. You're just looking for validation of what you're thinking of doing. And my advice to you is just do what you feel you have to do to get your message out there. So if this going to conventions with these people and talking to 15,000 people at a time is more effective than recording a podcast and hoping that you get 1,000 or 2,000 or 5,000 or 10,000 listeners over the course of a month or 6 months or whatever. I think you already have an idea of what you want to do. You're just looking for someone else to say it's okay to do it.
Well, I agree with that. I would also let me jump in here quick too. I think if you're at these shows and you're getting, you have an audience of 15,000 people, could you be converting them into listeners, and also not just listeners, but also to repeat customers in that instance. And so having them, become, a part of your brand, having them appreciate your brand and be a part of that, could you, while you have that audience, get them to subscribe, to buy from you or buy from your company? I don't know the logistics of all that. I apologize for being kind of ignorant to that because I'm in a state that doesn't allow that stuff. And we have to drive to Illinois or Michigan if we want to be get stuff. So what's the ability for you to take that reach and amplify your sales and also your listenership through there? And from a technological standpoint, there's so many different things that you could do on your iPhone to make that happen. I can offer you like 4 things without even pulling up Google here, so that part's pretty easy.
I appreciate that.
I love the passion. It's very sincere. I think you gotta keep that up and figure out how to use it to your advantage. What do you think, Greg? Before we go to Matthew, no, go ahead, Chris.
Oh, I said, and it's honestly, it's an easy thing to keep up because I'm not kidding. 5 years ago, I was diagnosed with an inoperable frontal lobe brain tumor that they gave me a year to live, and cannabis is what cured me. And I decided when I got my second MRI done and we were shown that the swelling went down and the tumor had actually shrunk in size, I decided at that moment that if cannabis saved my life, it did so no one would ever have to plan their funeral on their 40th birthday ever again. And that's been the one thing that's fueled me through all of this. So like losing that passion and that drive is never going to be an issue. I just have to figure out a way to like still pay the bills while I'm doing that.
Yeah, I don't think I have anything to add. I mean, from a technology standpoint, I think for under $100, you could probably get a nice microphone. And if you have a producer, you can ship the files off to or pop them in a Dropbox or something. You probably could put together a decent little show on the road, and it sounds like you're going to get a lot of exposure. And I would say just congrats.
I appreciate that. I really do.
I appreciate the passion. Matthew, you've been waiting patiently with your hand up. Go ahead. We'll finish off the evening with you. What you got?
Hey, thanks for letting me talk. I'll be quick since that was pretty long. I have a cannabis history podcast. I'm not here to plug it, but my thing is, because it's cannabis history, we keep falling into black holes when it comes to advertising. I mean, a lot of monetization's been lost. I just wanted to know if anybody had any good advice on how to monetize something that is, I mean, it's cannabis related in the sense that it's just strain and genetic history because we're old breeders, but that's it. But we've run into every problem. Like we're selling weed.
I've been down this road before. I can help you.
Thank you.
So we have a couple of clients
who specializes in your marketing issue. So make sure to send me a message and I'll give you his contact.
There are a number of clients or brands that we work with who sell nutrients to help the growth of cannabis products. But they're run by organizations who don't yet want to say that they're for cannabis. So if you think of some of the big names in fertilizers that you may see in your local big box store, and I'm not going to name names, but they do sell products for hydroponics, for in-ground foliar applications, all different sorts of types of things. They're looking for places where they can promote their product to growers in particular, but can't for regulatory purposes, especially if they're publicly traded or some of those kind of things, go out and say specifically, this product works great for marijuana. And so your best bet is to look for the places who might sell different types of nutrients and other types of those types of, I guess I'm trying to say things without saying
I know
names.
I know literally exactly what you're talking about and who. So I really appreciate it. That's really smart.
Yeah. So if you go to you find them, you could go to LinkedIn, find the marketing director or CMO or those kind of people and try to have a conversation with them. And then, that's where you got to make your pitch on why they should advertise on the show, how much it costs, what your listenership looks like, those kind of things. Because they're still going to want to make sure that they're getting their money's worth. But there are, and if you DM me, I could probably give you some names, or not names, but brands that you can reach out to or start doing some research on. But that would be, it goes back to Greg's niche talk that he gives every time we have this conversation, is there are people who are looking for people like you and looking for shows like yours to advertise on, but they don't know you're there and they don't know where to find you. So you need to help them. You need to grease the skids.
That's all great advice. As a black market dude, I've never looked at LinkedIn ever in my life, but that's pretty brilliant. And it seems obvious to some people, but not to me. So I really appreciate that.
You got it. Thanks for coming on the show.
In the short term, you ought to look at some affiliate opportunities, because I'm sure they exist. Like even for, like the more legal CBD type stuff that's, big and can sell a lot of places. I know there's I don't know how deep you get into this, but there's like home grow kits. There's like all sorts of these. There's all sorts of these things out there, depending on how deep you want to go or whatever. I mean, I seen an affiliate. There's affiliates for everything, and the reason this came to mind is because I was thinking about buying a vineyard, and I wanted to understand like how if the soil is any good. And I was listening to a podcast about vineyards, and it was an affiliate for a soil sample kit. I don't know, and that's when I realized I was way over my head. So nothing happened there, but it just always reminds me that there's an affiliate for literally everything. Like just anything you can think of. There's affiliate relationships.
I appreciate that. Like I said, I was a black market dude, and I had people running our podcast, and they made themselves the owners. So now I'm competing with our old podcast. But I do have the last 14 days, it seemed to be good despite competing against my other version of our podcast. So I really appreciate all the help. It's all brand new, the business side of this to me.
Yeah. Look, if you look at, I did an interview with Jordan Harbinger where something similar happened to him, where he had to compete against his old show. So if you want to hear a show about like a kindred spirit there, just search for Podcast Creators, and you can watch it video on Spotify for anybody who's interested in seeing how that works. Not to plug that, but he dominated and crushed that other show. So it might give you some inspiration.
Oh, I'd love it. I need it right now. Thank you.
It's also an episode that I feed dropped on mine. So if you want to listen to my podcast instead of Greg's, that'd be awesome.
Oh yeah. Yeah. You can listen to Jeff's. It doesn't matter to me. I'd rather, he's got more episodes than me.
I'm going to be checking them both out, so I appreciate it.
All right, Greg, take us home. It's your turn this week.
Thanks everybody for coming to Podcasting Power Hour. Believe it or not, it's supposed to be an hour, and it starts at 9 Eastern time. We would love if you shared it with somebody. We want to keep this community growing. There's also a podcast version of this that's, it's a few weeks behind. That's my job to do. So if you miss a week, it's no problem at all. Just go to podcastingpowerhour.com. And you can see, I edit it slightly, mostly just Jeff and Ed. So I cut Ed out of almost everything. So, but other than that, it's pretty much this exact same thing. And we'd appreciate it if you gave it a follow, a listen, or whatever the people say these days.
Go ahead, Fuzz. I saw you come off the mute.
I was just going to say, smash that plus button on Apple Podcasts.
Yeah, what is that? Like the check mark. Give me the check mark.
Smash that tiny little button that's easy to miss. No, I appreciate everybody listening, and this is a lot of fun every week that I can make it. I apologize in the weeks that I can't because I'm busy running this huge metropolis of 2,704 people. And thanks for coming on the Podcasting Power Hour.
Last thing I'll say, make sure you give me a super follow before you buy Tanner Campbell any coffee. It'd be greatly appreciated.
That's hilarious.
And on that note, keep being you, keep being great, and don't litter. We'll see you next week.
Are you pre-editing me before Greg has a chance?
Oh, the closing thoughts by Ed. See you later, everybody. Click.
And that's the end.
Thank you for listening to the Podcasting Power Hour. Everyone is free to participate on Twitter Spaces every Monday at 9 p.m. Eastern Time. To join, just follow Jeff at podcast_father or Greg at Indie Drop-In. If you found this podcast helpful, go into your podcast app and write a quick review. Other podcasters will see it and know this show is worth listening to. Also, I'll put a few links in the show notes for ways you can support the show. I think by now you know we love our coffee. Have a great week.
What do you think, Ed? You already missed the pitch that you've been asking for.
Oh, I'm sorry. You know that I have to walk my dogs around that time, and I just sometimes get in the dead zone. How was the pitch?
You're a creature of habit,
great.
Ed. Yeah.
The pitch was fantastic.
Oh, good to hear. I'm glad it went well. But no, I just...
It was better when he smiled, though. Although I could not I had to stay on mute because it was the funniest thing Ariel's ever said.
That was pretty good. I will have to concur with that thought.
Right,
yeah, she reached out and said she had to jump off, but she was glad she could get back in. We hadn't talked to her much in the last couple of weeks, really.
No. I see Leo's on too. No chatting from him. Maybe his microphone's all acting crazy. Thought we would get some good inputs there.
So are we going to do a Podcasting Power Hour post show with Ask Ed Anything?
So, on the podcast version, by the way, if you get past the credits, I put the post show in. So I listened to it to make sure that we don't see anything weird. But this part is in the podcast. So, and Ed, I do not cut you out. Don't worry, buddy.
I'm not worried. I would cut myself out if I could.
So we told Tanner that the show starts at 10 his time today. So just keep that. Make sure you don't break our secret.
Oh, Paddington can stay in the dark for all I care.
No, Greg, I'm not having mic issues tonight.
What?
No, when I told you it was some stupid emulator I was trying to. Oh, stop it!
How about I interrupt you like that one guy?
Oh gosh, that guy!
I can't believe you're bringing up.
Oh, no, no.
I was pro weed until that kept getting interrupted, and now I'm totally anti weed.
Are we going to start the show anytime soon, guys?
I'm hanging up, Ed. This is enough for me for Monday.
Well, no, but
I mean, Tanner finally showed up. It's time to start the show.
Oh, damn it! See, he's early.
No, but tonight
Tanner,
I just wanted to
you're
listen.
Like a half hour early.
He missed Ariel. He would be very sad.
Yeah. She specifically said she liked being called Ari, which is what Tanner calls her, which I thought was hilarious.
Hey, Tanner, how are the tacos?
Taco Tanner.
He's having mic issues. Come
on, Tanny.
By the way, I did confirm with some friends in Texas that breakfast tacos must contain egg. So I don't know how it's going on in Denver, but those are not breakfast tacos.
All breakfast tacos must contain egg. That is just a general rule of thumb, regardless of where you are.
Oh,
That's how Taco Bell did it.
Yeah, Leo. I mean, Taco Bell. I mean, that's the authority. You are so right.
Absolutely. Stop it.
Never gonna live that down. I was like, is this what your podcast sounds like?
Oh my gosh.
I wish I had real philosophical things to say like that one guy was too.
Well, isn't weed legal in Colorado? Oh, in Indiana? No, it's not in Indiana. That's right.
Jeff, were you not going to approve Tanner? I approved him.
I've approved him like 6 times. I don't know what he's doing.
He bumped himself back down, I think.
So that guy said he's coming to Cincinnati. I almost...
I'm gonna have to mute Ed. I cannot take it anymore.
I'll stop.
And I was in your corner last night, Ed. I was with you, man. You're just gonna call me out like that.
No, I'm gonna static you out like that.
But that guy said he's coming to Cincinnati. I almost said, "Hey, let's hook up," but he talked too fast for me. I can't deal with people who talk really, really super fast like that. I don't know why. It just gives me the...
Yeah, I'm on a 333 megahertz brain. I can't do it.
Yeah, it makes me uneasy.
Hey guys, I came here a little late. This is the first time I'm joining the group. Is it okay if I ask a question? I mean, I can always wait till next week, but I never knew this group existed. This was the first time. Just Twitter recommended it to me, and I just hopped on.
Jeff, is it past your bedtime, or can you stay up late?
I'm fine. Although I will tell you, Tanner, it keeps giving me an error message. I'm not sure what's going on. It says I add you as a speaker, and then it says an error message. But I'm good. That's up to Greg and Fuzz. I'm still on COVID brain.
Yeah, I'm good because NOSA, if it's pronounced NOSA, I have an affinity for trucking logistics, so I want to hear your question, and I've wanted to hear your question since you requested to be a speaker. So hit us.
I'm gonna drop, guys. So have a great night, and Nosa, I hope you get your question answered without me, but it's unlikely. See ya.
All right, thank you, Greg and Fuzz. So a couple of friends approached me, like 2 friends of mine approached me about an idea of starting a podcast network centered around a music genre, right? So the idea is to talk about things pertaining to that music genre, like maybe interview artists, break down, albums, talk about historical things that happen within that genre. Everything sounded good to me, but my only issue was music licensing and podcasting. I mean, it's been an age-long battle between those two where, record labels don't necessarily want to permit podcasts to use music without fair use or not. And I was like, how are you going to have a music podcast or music genre network without playing music, not consistently, but, every now and again? And if, the record labels are pulling down episodes because of that, then is it something that's sustainable? So I don't know, does anyone have any kind of recommendation or hack or resources to kind of help with that?
Yeah, I spent 15 years in broadcasting, and I worked with not only record labels but also BMI ASCAP licensing. And I will say that the reason they don't like podcasts is because anybody can go to your RSS feed and download their protected songs without you paying for them. So it is in whether they download a full episode of a show and they take out the minutes within that are their song or songs plural. That's why they don't like that. So you're not going to have a good time if you try to put music into your podcast, and you're not going to have a good time if you are trying to make a show based around music. I would recommend doing something like AMP or what's the other live broadcast thing from Station Head is the other one I'm thinking of. I would recommend doing something like that if you're going to do those are live broadcast type things. Otherwise, I believe you can put music in Anchor if you only if you play the whole song and don't If you don't, you can't talk over the music or anything like that. I think you have to play the whole song and like go to a break and those kind of things. Go ahead, Leo.
Fuzz is struggling to answer the question.
So the way it works on Anchor is, you have to play the whole song. You can't interrupt it. You can't talk on it over it. However, the only way people who are listening to your show can hear those songs is on Anchor or Spotify. So if you have your podcast anywhere else, they won't hear them.
Yeah. So your audience knows that becomes really small. Go ahead, Tanner. Hit it.
I got to share an embarrassing story. You guys are going to laugh at me, and I know that everybody loves a good chance to laugh at Tanner because he's a big old shit talker. So I've got this podcast. It's called Practical Stoicism. Gets about 10,000 downloads a day, okay? It's got about 40,000 regular listeners. I get 40,000 downloads within the 7 days of a release. So I'm thinking, you know what it's time for? It's time, based on Greg's advice. Fucking Greg, this is a reason never to listen to him if he's in the room. I can't see him, but if he's ever in this room, never listen to him. He goes, you should try to monetize this. And I go, you know what? Greg, you motherfucker, you're right. I should. So I'm going to start up a supercast. So I start up a supercast 2 days ago. You guys, does anybody want to guess how many people signed up for my supercast out of 40,000 regular listeners? Go ahead. I will wait for your guesses.
I got
7.
No.
5.
2.
0.
7.
I already said 7.
0.
8.
Fucking not a single one.
Yep.
And the reason that I thought to bring it up was because you guys were talking about Spotify, and the largest portion, tens of thousands of those 40,000 are on Spotify. And I thought, well, I can do one of two things here. I can launch a supercast, or I can move my podcast over to Anchor, which I'm not necessarily against. Anchor's matured a lot since its early days. It's still got shitty analytics, but if most of my audience is there, I would be willing to do it. But you know what? If there's nothing within the Spotify app that allows somebody to subscribe to a payment plan, they have to escape the app, and they have to go to Anchor. And the reason for that is that Spotify doesn't want to give any money to Apple or to Google for processing the payment within the app on their devices. And so I thought, okay, well, it's probably not going to have as good results, but it will have some results. And to right now, this very minute, not a single fucking person has subscribed. So I just want to give you all a chance to laugh at me for that.
There, done.
But back to the original question, music in a podcast, it just has not. It's just not there yet.
Jim. Fuck you, Jim.
Sorry, Tanner.
Yeah, the problem is all the licensing. So that's why on Anchor and Spotify, if you play music, there's a show called Supernova Earth, and he only hosts it on Spotify because it's a music show. And he'll only host it there because that's the only place people can hear the music he plays. So he can't even try to venture out of it.
And that's because it's a closed platform that people can't actually download to their device. I mean, you can, with any platform, you can find a way to record audio or whatever that might be, but you can't physically download it through an RSS right to your computer. So that's why.
And I know there's something about music licensing where you can play, I think it's 15 seconds before you start running into any issues. I don't know if that's 100% correct, but
it's not. My wife is an IP lawyer. My wife is an IP lawyer, and no, fair use is a myth in most regards when it comes to music.
Right. See, so that's why it gets so complicated with running a music podcast.
So I've got a question for you, Fuzz. Do you think that these two things we just mentioned about Spotify, my pathetic situation and this music situation, do you think it's a reason to focus on Spotify, or do you think it's a reason to avoid Spotify?
If you can find enough audience to be on Spotify to find that, then I think it's a reason you focus on Spotify. I will tell you this, and since there are a good 13 of us here, I have a podcast it's like an archived podcast. I haven't done an episode in, 2 years. And we used to do titles or lyrics of songs as the title of our show. And on Spotify, I still get downloads, like 40 downloads a month on a stupid episode that I've never touched because people type that into Spotify and you get found that way. But from a, should you focus on Spotify itself? I don't know. If it's music focused, maybe. I could see for Nosa's application that might be cool, but I don't know. I mean,
you know what? I've got it. Run out 5 episodes because Anchor's free, and see where it goes. What are we? I mean, you'll just be out the time at that point. If it works, it works. If it doesn't, you put it back on the shelf and you forget it before you go starting a network and all this other stuff. Just try 5 shows and Anchor with the music and focus on Spotify. And
well, can you even really start a music podcast network if you're only going to be on 1 or 2 systems because of the song limitations?
Exactly.
Well, no, wait a minute. I think you could. There's this, Jeff and Greg have heard me talk about this, but there's this myth in podcasting that being everywhere matters. But the side effect of being everywhere is that you must promote everywhere. Whereas if you focus on a platform, be it Spotify or Apple or Overcast or Player FM, whatever it is, if you put all of your effort to growing an audience in a single place, that must be easier and more likely to be successful than splitting your marketing attentions across, I mean, God, how many are there? 50 potential listing platforms?
I would just say if you're going to do that, you're going to have to let your audience obviously know up front, this is where we're going to go. But go on a platform, you have to go on Spotify because I think that's the only podcasting platform that has the license ability for you to play a song without getting sued. So don't try to do that on your own platform and not put it on Apple or whatever. Just like,
no, that's not true. You can play up to 6 minutes of any song without any legal ramifications. Just go ahead and do it. You'll see.
Well, Tanner Campbell, a lawyer, better call Tanner.
I was going to say, and call Tanner when the bill comes.
Did Greg come back in the room all of a sudden and start giving bad advice again?
Jeff,
so I will offer.
Super over this week.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I'm just saying you're very over. I got in the car and drove home from my dinner with Seth, and I didn't expect that this would still be going on.
Yeah, it ended a little while ago. You came in on the back end of the banter. It went till 10:25, I think, though. We had people waiting in line to go.
We were all making fun of you in a line.
Perfect. Did you guys talk about the charting thing? Because I'm sorry I missed that.
What charting thing are you talking about?
I left it. I figured we could talk about it next week.
Okay, cool. I'll have more data by then, too, so maybe that's better.
We had pretty good, I mean, really, we just piggybacked off questions. And Greg kind of kicked it off, but we had some pretty good questions tonight.
There was one guy that had a 10-minute elevator pitch.
How did it go? Would he have sold me? What was he pitching?
No, I actually texted Jeff. And I said, I feel like we're being filibustered.
Yeah, I was lost pretty early. I couldn't even comment on it because I was gone.
Yeah, I DM'd Jeff about 90 seconds in and said, this guy already lost me after 90 seconds. And then he just kept going and going and going.
The thing is, he has a cool studio, but he was trying to sell us is what was happening. And
yeah, I was gonna say, it sounds like he's got a great studio in Vegas. I just told you that 10 minutes and 7 words.
What was he trying to sell? Engineering services?
Wiz
advertising
Khalifa.
Model. He was trying to sell his advertising model, is what I gleaned from it.
Yep.
Well, listen, I mean, you got to respect a guy for hustling. Here we all are, well, most of you guys tonight, showing up, hosting conversations, and I bet you not a single son of a gun in the audience tipped you or went to your profile and bought you a coffee. So, you got to appreciate the hustle sometimes. We don't get paid 3 Satoshis.
I gained 7 followers, so that's $7,000 a month.
7 followers that'll never subscribe to a fucking thing you put out.
That's the value. That's the value I bring to you guys. I get you the cheapest people.
Hey,
so is that a value add?
This space saved me
no value
to fight with my wife.
Yeah,
so,
Leo,
this is all
value
good.
times 0 is 0, buddy.
Yeah. I single-handedly ruined Tanner's podcast and all his ambitions with it.
The thousands of Satoshi I make every year are now no longer there.
All right, I'll bite.
17 cents.
Oh, wait, do you not know the Satoshi story?
Well, I just know what you said on your show.
Here's evidence of no one listening to anything anyone says outside of these rooms. So
I listen to your show. I know about the Satoshis, like 5,000 Satoshis is worth a penny, or 50 Satoshis are worth a penny. I listen.
50 Satoshis is worth a penny, and if you download the Fountain app, you can get tipped 3 Satoshi for every episode you put out. And Podcasting 2.0 and all this Bitcoin shit are like, let's get rich getting money from our supporters. And all these supporters are like tipping 100 Satoshi per episode, which is 2 cents. And everybody's like, this is the answer. This is how we finally turn a profit as podcasters. And we're like, dude, at what point do I get to tell a listener to fuck off for seriously insulting me, for giving me 2 pennies for listening to my shit? Like, at what point do we just say, listen up, asshole, you wouldn't give anybody who did anything, including begging on the corner, 2 cents. How fucking dare you?
Okay, I'm downloading the Fountain app just to give Tanner 50 Satoshi.
Please, I need it.
I would say it was back in January this year. We switched from Spreaker to Captivate, and when we switched, we lost our programmatic ads that ran on my wife's show and my show, but my wife's show mostly. And we were, she's got 175 weekly followers, and residual episodes and things like that. We're probably making, I don't know, $20 a month on her show, and she's like beside herself that Captivate hasn't rolled out these programmatic ads yet, because they said they were going to, and they haven't when they switched to global. And it's kind of like Satoshi. I'm like, it doesn't matter so much. We should probably just put together a sell sheet and get you an actual sponsor instead of trying to get these programmatic ads on your show that are going to pay shit anyway. So, yeah, it's kind of that whole Satoshi thing. It's like, you've got a super niche audience. You could probably find actual people to buy that, and spending the time to implement this or wait for this or switch back to Spreaker isn't worth the funds.
That's the route that I went. I mean, I've been able to maintain 3 sponsors really the whole time throughout the podcast now. So no regrets with that decision.
The problem with her show is that she focuses on free tools for teachers, since teachers are completely broke, underfunded, etc. So finding somebody to pay for us to say, hey, this episode's brought to you by, X platform. They also have a free version. And 169 of those 170 followers each month are going to get the free version, and maybe one will subscribe. But
isn't there some there's potential for coffee or pens or something else that is kind of in line, but not necessarily.
She makes her money on her show by speaking at conferences. So each year she'll get a handful of speaker events, and it ends up being 5,000 or so a year ish. And so it's not so bad when it comes down to it, but it's not episode related, there's that whole tie-in that you want that gratification of, like, hey, we've got this many followers and this many people listening, and we should get paid for the episode, versus my expertise is good enough that I've been asked to come and speak at this because of what I talk about.
Wait a minute.
And they're paying me money.
Wait a minute. How are you going to say $5,000 a year is pretty okay?
I mean, we're doing it. It's not our. I mean, this is our side.
Listen to me, Fuzz. God damn it! We have people rioting in the streets with signs because they want to make $18 for working at McDonald's, and you think making $5,000 a year for the podcast you make is fucking worth it? What the fuck is wrong with people, dude? Where's this inconsistent morality and outrage when it comes to podcasting? Fuck everybody.
Especially since podcasting is just you talking. That's all you do.
Yeah, I'm gonna close this room out and open up a new one. So
actually, I got to take off, guys. Thanks for hanging out. Thanks again, Jeff.
Yeah, I'll open up another one for a little bit.
Is Greg going to be there so I know what to think?
Greg's already asleep.
He's old. So, yeah, he's in bed.
Old Greg.
All right. Look for everybody that wants to chat for a while. Look for that space here in 30 seconds.
All right. See you guys.
Thank you for checking out this episode of Indie Podcaster. I really do appreciate it. If you're interested in learning more about this podcast, you can go to podcastfather.com. If you're interested in all the different kind of work that I'm doing, you can go to jefftownsend.media. Contact form on there, various other different podcasts and projects that I'm involved in that I think you will enjoy. But again, thank you for supporting me, and make sure you support Indie Drop-In Network like we covered in the beginning. Get your podcast featured on there. Until I see you next time, take care of yourself and keep being you and keep being great.
Jeff Townsend Media. CG, good night.
And the question is, do I stay here? Will you be back? Are you gonna come back? Will you be back? Are you coming back?